When I got sick, my daughter stopped buying my medicine. "You won't last long anyway," she said. She said it like she was noting the weather. Dry, ordinary, inevitable. I was holding the orange bottle her hand refused to take, 3 little tablets clacking like teeth in an empty mouth. The kettle screamed behind me. She didn't flinch. "It's wasteful," she added, opening the fridge as if searching for proof. "These pills are expensive. The doctor just wants to keep you coming back." "My heart medicine isn't a hobby," I told her. She shrugged, lifted the milk, sniffed it, set it back. "You're always dramatic, Mum. A few days won't kill you." "A few days can kill anyone," I said, and I hated how gentle my voice sounded. She rolled her eyes toward the calendar where I had circled my next appointment. "I cancelled that. Gas is too much, and I can't miss work again because you don't feel right. You're 73. Nothing feels right." Something small went quiet inside me. Not broken. Quiet. I looked at her, the girl who once fell asleep with a fever on my chest, slick with Vicks and trust. Now she tapped the counter with a painted nail and glanced at her phone. The kettle stopped screaming. The house felt too still. "Then I'll go by myself," I said. "With what car?" She laughed. "You gave me the keys so you wouldn't get confused. Remember?" She leaned closer, perfume sweet and sharp. "Don't make this harder than it is." "Harder than what?" "Watching your mother count her breaths. Choosing the price of pills over the price of regret. How could my daughter decide my life was worth rounding down?" "Leave the bottles," I told her, as if I were the one rationing mercy. She set them on the table with a clink I'll hear until the end. When the door closed behind her, the house exhaled. I sat, lined up the 3 tablets, and thought of everything I had taught her. To read signs, to boil bones for soup, to measure twice before cutting. She thinks I'm fading. She doesn't know I've been keeping a ledger. Dates, doses, the times she forgot. She doesn't know about the tiny recorder in the bread box, or the pharmacist who calls me Mrs. Hart with a kindness say that feels like a rope. She doesn't know that the woman she is starving of help has been feeding a different hunger, the one that wakes when survival is insulted. If you want to understand how we arrived at that kitchen table and what I did next, we have to go back to the beginning. I raised my daughter, Lena, with both hands and no safety net. Her father left when she was 3. I waited tables, folded other people's laundry, learned which bills could be paid a week late without the lights going out. I wasn't perfect. I was tired. But she ate first. She wore a clean coat, and every night I laid out her clothes for the morning like a promise I meant to keep. When she was 10, we built a kite out of newspaper and dowels. It didn't fly. She cried anyway, not from failure, but from the wind tangling her hair. "It hurts," she sobbed. I sat her down and worked the comb through slowly, strand by strand. "You have to be patient when it tangles," I told her. "Yanking only makes it worse." Years later, when the tangles weren't in hair but in our lives, I would remember that. Lena grew into a woman whose laugh could fill a room, and whose silences could drain it. When she met Jason, the silences won. He was quiet, competent, the kind of man who corners a conversation by knowing the price of everything. He managed a car lot. He liked facts, receipts, numbers. "I can help you organize your accounts," he told her on their second date. She thought that was love. Maybe it was, in his language. I tried to be fair. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. He used the word sensible, like a leash. When I got the heart diagnosis, nothing exotic, just a stubborn valve and blood pressure that climbed like ivy. Lena insisted I move closer. "It's not safe for you to be alone," she said. I sold the little apartment where I knew the creaks by heart and rented a small bungalow on the edge of her neighborhood. "We'll take care of you," she promised. For a while she did. She drove me to appointments when she could. She brought groceries. She told me to text when I needed anything. Then Jason's hours were cut, and the car lot stopped paying bonuses. "It'll pick up," he said, already wearing disappointment like a pressed shirt. Expenses grow teeth when income shrinks. Lena started picking fights with money. Electricity, prescriptions, my blood work. "Do you really need all these tests?" she asked, eyes on the bottom line. I kept my mouth shut and my ledger open. I wrote the date of every dose. I taped receipts under each week. When a day went blank, I wrote why. Out of pills, ride cancelled, Lena forgot. It felt petty at first. Then it felt like proof. The day I fainted in the yard, the grass was too bright and the sky too far. I came to with Irene, my neighbor, patting my cheek and shouting my name like she was calling a dog home. "I'm fine," I said, which is what women my age say when we are not. She called Lena anyway. Lena arrived 15 minutes later, out of breath and already angry. "I told you not to weed the beds," she snapped, scooping my fallen gloves as if evidence of disobedience. "You refused to listen." "This is why you need supervision." "I need my medication," I said. "I'm out." She looked at Irene as if I'd embarrassed her in public. She forgets. She has been forgetting a lot. "I haven't forgotten a thing," I said softly. "I remember exactly when I asked you for a refill. At the clinic the next week, because Irene walked with me. Doctor." Shah listened to my heart and then listened to me. I didn't accuse Lena. I just told the truth cleanly, like slicing an apple with a good knife. Sometimes my daughter can't get me to the pharmacy. Sometimes the pills don't appear. I know money is tight. I'm trying to work around it. Dr. Shah's eyes, the color of fresh coffee, flicked toward the door. "Do you feel safe?" "That's a big word," I said. "I feel at risk." She nodded, then wrote more than a prescription. She wrote a name and a number on the back of her card. "If rides are a problem, call this volunteer service. And if you ever feel pressure about your care, call this agency." She tapped the second number. "You are not alone." It's surprising how much power 4 words have when you've been made to feel inconvenient. "At the pharmacy, mister." Patel made the bottle with a seriousness that felt like respect. "We can set up automatic refill and delivery," he said, lowering his voice. "It's free with your insurance." "Only if you want, I said. "But my daughter," he held up a hand. "You are the patient. We serve you." Then he leaned in, gentle. "And Mrs. Hart, if anyone interferes with your medication, you tell us. Sometimes families mean well. Sometimes their stress becomes unkind. Unkind is one way to say it. Another is neglect. I was not ready to use that word yet. I took the brown paper bag and the kindness with both hands. That night, Lena came over with takeout and ate like she was being timed. Jason arrived late, ties undone, because he always wore 2, one actual, one invisible. "How's the heart?" he asked, eyes on the television. "Beating," I said. "Good," he said, and tapped a text so hard it might have bruised the glass. "I can install cameras if you're worried about falls," he added. "Then we can check on you without driving over." "Cameras?" I kept my face neutral. "Basic ones, not expensive," he said to Lena. because everything was a pitch. If she wanders, they alert. I don't wander, I said, but I do forget to turn off kettles. I smiled with all my teeth. Cameras might catch that. When they left, I took the tiny recorder from the bread box and moved it to the blue willow teapot on the highest shelf. If cameras were coming, so was theatre. Let them watch me brew evidence. Automatic delivery changed the mood of the house. The box arrived monthly with each bottle sealed and logged. Lena frowned the first time. "This is wasteful," she said, as if the mailman were tossing bills through my window. "It's free," I said, "and safer." She started counting pills out loud when she visited, lining them up like soldiers. "Just making sure you're not mixing things up," she said. The recorder caught it all: the size, the tuts, the small tirades about cost. The ledger fattened, dates inked. Check marks grew like stitches. On Tuesdays, Irene and I played rummy and pretended not to look at the empty driveway where Lena's car should have been. On Thursdays, Mr. Patel called to ask if I had any questions, as if information itself could be medicine. On Sundays, Jason sent links to articles about seniors overspending on health fads. "Snake oil," he said, flattening my prescriptions with a phrase meant for tonics and charlatans. The first forgery was small, a check for $60 to cash, my signature bent a little too eager at the tail. I noticed when I balanced the account. Jason liked facts, so do banks. I called mine and asked for copies of the last 6 months of cleared checks. The envelope arrived heavy. My name had apparently been generous, to gas, to groceries, to once a boutique I had never walked into. The amounts rose like a fever. I took my ledger, the check copies, and my patience to Miss Calder, an elder law attorney whose office smelled faintly of lemon and lined paper. She wore her hair in a bun like a ballerina who had learned to fight. "Tell me everything you think is not important," she said. So I did. I told her about gas money I hadn't given, signatures that curled where mine stayed steady, the missing appointment, the pause between Lena's sentences when I asked for rides. I told her about the cameras Jason wanted and the pills Lena counted while talking about cost. I told her about the fainting, the neighbor, the way the house seemed to exhale when Lena left. When I finished, she leaned back. "We're going to make this simple and slow," she said. "You will revoke any powers you've signed if you've signed any. We will set up a living trust with you as trustee and a successor of your choosing. We will file a fraud report with your bank and a police report if necessary. We will document everything. Do not confront them yet. Let them narrate themselves." "Isn't that cruel?" I asked. The word felt strange in my mouth. I had never been the kind of woman to plot. "Cruel is withholding essential medicine," she said. "This is protection." We signed, we stamped, we notarized. She slid a thick envelope across the desk, heavy with copies. "Keep these on you," she said. "If they try anything, you have what you need." I walked to the bus with the envelope pressed to my ribs like a second heart. It was a bright day, the kind that makes you believe in things like timing. Lena arrived that night with cupcakes from a grocery store that still used plastic clamshells. "Special," she said, though there was no occasion. Jason stood in the doorway like a bouncer waiting for a line. "We should talk," he said, "about planning." "Planning," I repeated, placing the envelope gently in the fruit bowl under the bananas. "Mum," Lena began, all butter now. "It's time to be practical. If something happens, we need to be able to make decisions. The doctor said you've been fainting. What if you can't speak for yourself?" "I can speak for myself," I said. I did it just now. Jason smiled with his mouth, not his eyes. Nobody's taking anything away. We're offering to help. It's irresponsible not to accept. Let's be responsible then, I said. Show me what you'd like me to sign. The folder appeared like a magician's scarf. Power of attorney, healthcare proxy, a deed transfer drafted on a template that still had someone else's watermark. My name filled the blanks like a ghost already living there. Who drew these up? I asked lightly. A friend, Jason said. I prefer professionals, I said, and placed the papers next to the bananas. I'll have my attorney review them. Silence fell with weight. You got a lawyer? Lena asked, as if I'd gotten a tattoo. Yes, I said. Her name is Calder. She was recommended. Jason's jaw worked. Lawyers complicate things, he said. Complications happen when you try to build a house without a level, I said. A lawyer is a level. If everything is straight, we're fine. They left quickly after that. The recorder listened to the door close, and then to the loud, stunned quiet. I walked to the fruit bowl and touched the envelope. I did not take it out. It would be there when I needed it. A level doesn't brag. It waits. The next morning, the lock on my back door was different. I noticed because the key stuck where it used to slide. My fingers remembered before my mind did. I called a locksmith and paid cash. Old lock back, please, I said pleasantly. This one squeaks. He nodded, no questions, and restored the small piece of my life that opens from the inside. A week later, 2 things happened. 1, a pharmacy delivery went missing from my porch within an hour of arrival. 2, Lena sent me a list of high-priority household items she wanted to store in my shed. Jason's toolboxes, extra tires, a plastic bin labeled tax docs. Just for a bit, she said. We're decluttering. I said yes to the shed. I said nothing about the missing box. I called Mr. Patel and asked when it had been delivered. He checked the log. 11:30, he said. Left on porch. Photo taken. He paused. May I ask? You may, I said. It's gone. There was a breath on the line, then the sound of a decision. We'll hold future deliveries for pickup only, he said. And I'll put a note on the account. Hand to patient only. Thank you, I said. The recorder caught how my voice shook. Fear sounds like a cough you try to swallow. Irene came over that afternoon with scones and curiosity. Shed? She asked. I told her about the bins. Her eyebrows climbed. Don't you dare, she said. Dare what? To think you have to be the storage unit for their secrets, she said. If Jason's name is on any of those papers, it's because he needs them close. Keep your distance. And keep making copies of everything. Irene has lived in the same house since 1978. She knows how to survive men who want your pantry and your quiet. I baked her scones until her advice cooled the panic. The shed filled. Tires, toolboxes, a duffel bag zipped tight and heavy. The plastic bin labelled tax docs unlatched itself one afternoon when I went to set down the rake. Papers breathed out like moths. I didn't touch them. Not my papers. Not my problem, I told myself. Then I saw my name on a bank statement page. It wasn't curiosity that made me pick it up. It was recognition. The statement listed withdrawals from my account, debit transactions at gas stations, and a payday loan place I'd never entered, the loan issued against a check I had not written. My hand shook, not from age. I slid the page back and closed the lid. I stood very still, like a deer hearing engines. Then I went inside and wrote the date and time in my ledger, 3:42 p.m. Shed bin opened by accident. Saw bank statement with my name. Unfamiliar charges. I added a star. Mr. Patel called 2 days later. There's something I need to tell you, he said. A woman came in asking to pick up your medication. She said you sent her my daughter? I didn't ask, he said. I asked for your consent. She didn't have it. I refused. She got upset. I told her to have you call me. She didn't mention it, I said. Thank you. She looked tense, he said carefully. I'm going to make a note in the system. We'll call the number you gave us if anyone asks. That night, Lena came over brittle and bright. Big day? I asked. Busy, she said. I stopped by the pharmacy to save you a trip, but they're ridiculous. You should switch. They're careful, I said. That's what I pay them for. You don't pay, she snapped. Insurance does. The copay is mine, I said. And so is my body. She looked at me like a stranger standing in her kitchen. 2 weeks later, Jason appeared with a smile that made my teeth feel loose. We've applied for guardianship, he said without preamble. Lena stood behind him, arms folded. It's standard. The doctor will sign. You've had episodes guardianship, I repeated, tasting the word like a foreign food. Over whom? Over you, he said, as if explaining sunlight. So we can make decisions efficiently. Decisions like medicine? I asked. Like money? All of it, he said. You won't have to worry. I already don't, I said, and reached for the fruit bowl. I took out the envelope and set it on the table. I revoked any powers weeks ago. I formed a trust yesterday. You can speak to my attorney. Lena's face went blank. Jason's didn't. He went red in a way that looked expensive. You did what? I protected myself, I said, from poor decisions. Whose? He asked. The smile returned, thinner. Be careful what you accuse people of. Words have consequences. So do actions, I said, like forging checks. Lena inhaled sharply. Mum? Sit, I said. Both of you. When they did not move, I added, or leave. But if you stay, you'll listen. I told them about the checks, the bank copies, the missing pharmacy box, the shed paper I hadn't touched long enough to memorize, but long enough to recognize. I told them about automatic deliveries and Mr. Patel's note. I did not tell them about the recorder in the teapot, because a trap is not a trap if you shout its edges. We were trying to help, Lena said finally. It was an echo of, we were trying to discipline spoken by parents who confuse control with care. Help by taking? I asked. Help by telling a doctor I forget when I don't? Help by cancelling appointments? Help by applying for guardianship because your life is inconvenient? My voice rose, and the room shrank to fit it. Jason stood. This conversation is over, he said. We'll let the court decide. Court-like documents, I said. I brought mine. After they left, I called Miss. Calder. It's starting, I said. It's nearly finished, she said. I've filed the revocations. I'm drafting a response to any guardianship petition, and I'd like you to consider one more thing, a protective order. Is that necessary? The word protective made me want to put my hands over my face. It's an umbrella, she said. You carry it so you don't get soaked. You hope you won't need it. We filed the request and a police report with the check copies attached. The officer's pen clicked slower when he read the amounts. This happens, he said, not unsympathetic. Families get stressed. Stress is not a license, I said. It is a test. He nodded and took the folder. Lena stopped visiting for a week. The house relaxed. Irene and I watched a show about people baking complicated desserts and failing cheerfully. I took my pills. I slept without listening for keys in my lock. On day 8, Lena arrived with apology flowers and eyes that avoided me. I shouldn't have cancelled your appointment, she said, wringing the stems in the sink. I was overwhelmed. We're behind on everything. Jason says we can fix it if we tighten up. Tighten up what? I asked. My blood vessels? She laughed, quick and surprised. It sounded like the child she had been. No, she said. Our spending. We'll be fine. Then why apply for guardianship? I asked gently. She put her head in her hands. He said it would make things simpler. That I could speak for you if you got worse. He said the judge would rubber stamp it. And you believed him, I said, not unkind. She nodded into her palms. I wanted to. Wanting doesn't make it true, I said. It makes it comfortable. She lifted her head. Are you going to forgive me? Forgiveness is not the issue, I said. Safety is. I watched her face fold. I'm not trying to punish you, Lena. I'm trying to live. We sat in that raw truth until the doorbell rang. A uniform stood on the porch, hat in hand. Mum, we have a welfare check request, he said. A caller reported elder neglect at this address. I looked at Lena. She looked at me. Jason's car idled at the curb, a shark waiting for blood. Come in, I told the officer. I led him to the kitchen, to the medicine bottles lined like well-fed birds, to the calendar dotted with appointments kept, to the neat receipts taped like tiny flags. I showed him the automatic delivery notice and the phone log with Mr. Patel. You keep good records, he said, almost admiring. I used to run a restaurant, I said. If you don't write it down, it didn't happen. Jason came to the door, all concern. Officer, I'm her son-in-law. She's been forgetful. We're just trying to make sure she's safe. The officer looked at Lena. Is that true? Lena's lips trembled. She's fine, she said. We had a fight. That's all. The officer nodded. I'll note that. If you need anything, ma'am, call us. He left Jason on the porch with a smile he didn't return. I closed the door and leaned against it. Why would he do that? Lena whispered. Because control looks better when the state is holding one end of the rope, I said. He wants leverage. She wiped her eyes, smearing mascara into the person she had been. I didn't know, she said. I didn't want. I know what you didn't want, I said. But you did it. I took a breath that didn't hurt. There is a way to make some of this right. How? She asked, the word small and fierce. Tell the truth, I said. To me. To yourself. To anyone who asks. She nodded. It is easier to nod than to unknot. 2 days later, I picked up my prescription in person. Mr. Patel handed me the paper bag and met my eye. Everything okay? He asked. For the moment, I said. But I think more weather is coming. The storm arrived on a Tuesday. I was making soup when Lena's key failed in the back door I had quietly restored. She knocked, timid. I brought the car, she called. Thought we could go to the store. I opened the door, and there he was instead, Jason with the clipboard and the tight smile. New locks, Mrs. Hart, he said. For your safety. Behind him, Lena held a brochure that read, Sunny Haven, Independent Living. She wouldn't meet my eyes. A stack of papers wobbled in her hands. We can talk inside, she said. We did talk. You know that part. The cinnamon in the air, the cake with my name sinking, the pen in my hand like a small weapon I didn't intend to use. I told them we would do it properly. They relaxed. I did not. When Jason went to take a call, he left the folder open. A deed transfer again. A new power of attorney. A consent to sale. My name sitting on lines that could unhouse me with a stroke. Where's your notary, Sejeu? I asked. We can have one come by, he said, casual. Or we can sign now and notarize later. It's flexible. It's illegal, I said. Let's be legal. He rolled his eyes. Always difficult. I called Miss, called her in front of them and put her on speaker. We're ready to sign, I said. Could you come? She did not blink in her voice. I'm on my way, she said. Don't sign anything until I arrive. Jason hissed. There's no need to involve outsiders. Then there's no need to sign, I said. He paced. Lena sat. I stirred soup I did not intend to share. When a car door closed outside 20 minutes later, Jason straightened his shoulders like a man preparing for a negotiation he assumed he'd win. But it was not just Miss Calder at the door. It was also a woman with a badge, Adult Protective Services, and the officer with the slow pen. I had made other calls. This is harassment, Jason said, but he stepped back. We're here for a wellness check and to witness any legal transactions, the APS worker said. I'm Ms. Diaz. Wonderful, I said, and set the recorder from the teapot on the table. It blinked red like a tiny heart. Before we sign anything, I want to play something. Jason moved as if to grab it. The officer's hand met his wrist with a quiet firmness. Let her play it. The recorder spoke in my kitchen voice, and my daughter's and Jason's I had months of sound, but I chose the short braid of moments that told the truth without ornament. You won't last long anyway. It's wasteful. We can list it next week. She forgets. If we control the accounts, we're done. Jason's last sentence landed heavy. Lena made a sound I'd only heard in hospital waiting rooms. Miss Diaz looked at me as if she'd been waiting to see who I really was. Mr. Patel wasn't there, but his phone call log and delivery notes were, printed and highlighted. I took out my ledger. Dates, doses, missed deliveries, cancelled appointments, I said. Checks I didn't write. Transactions I didn't make. And this, I slid a bank statement copy with my forged signature on a loan contract. Found in my shed. Jason went still, then fluid like a man deciding to swim for it. You have no right. It was in my shed, I said. On my property. Miss Diaz looked at him. Sir, I'm going to ask you to step outside while I speak with Mrs. Hart and her daughter. Her daughter is unstable, he said. It was a mistake. Lena flinched, as if he'd slapped her again in a way you can't see. Outside, sir, the officer repeated. They stepped onto the porch. The door closed. The house exhaled again. Lena looked at me with the face of a woman who has finally read the full sentence of her life. I didn't know about the loan, she whispered. I swear. I believe you, I said. But you knew about the pills. She nodded, tears unpretty. I thought if you took fewer, you'd be less tired, less dependent. I thought he was right about the doctors, the costs. I thought it was practical. Practical is putting on your own oxygen mask before helping others, I said. Not stealing the mask and telling me to breathe better. Miss Diaz's face softened. Mrs. Hart, do you want to pursue charges? I want to be left alone to live in my house and take my medicine, I said. I want my accounts restored. I want him out of my shed, and I want a restraining order to make the locks worth the trouble. We can do that, she said. And we can refer for prosecution on the forgery and financial exploitation. It will be the state's decision, Lena sobbed. Quiet. Wrecked. Mum, she said. I'll tell them everything. I'll say what I did. Tell the truth, I said. All of it. And then leave. Jason returned with the officer. His certainty had cooled. We're done here, he said. You are, I said. I'm just getting started. The next weeks were not clean. Nothing about survival is tidy. There were hearings and forms and a bank that moved like molasses until it didn't. There was a detective who asked the same question 4 different ways. Did you sign this? Number. Did you give permission? Number. Did you benefit? Number. Did you understand? Yes. There was a judge who looked at me over bifocals and at Jason over nothing at all. Guardianship denied, she said. Protective order granted. The gavel sounded like a door clicking shut. The bank reversed the payday loan and froze the joint access that had been set up without my knowledge. My accounts returned to me like prodigal children, a little scuffed, a little ashamed. The police returned the items from my shed after taking photographs. A duffel with cash he couldn't explain. The tax bin that wasn't taxes. The tools of someone who thought the world was his to fix and strip. Lena moved out of Jason's house a week after the hearing. I'm staying with a friend, she said on the phone. I told the detective about the checks. He said I could be charged too. You could, I said. You might. I'm going to a counselor, she said quickly, for codependency. For whatever this was, good, I said, and meant it. When you are not sick with him, we can talk. Silence. Then a small, brave sentence. I want to be well. So do I said, and we sat there on the line holding the same desire from different corners. Jason did not go quietly. Men like him prefer to leave claw marks. He tried to charm the detective, then threatened to sue Ms. Diaz and Ms. Calder, then stood outside my house taking pictures like the house had cheated on him. The restraining order made the pictures a crime. The officer with the slow pen moved quickly that day. In the meantime, I adjusted my life like a seamstress, making a suit fit the woman who wears it now. I installed an actual camera, the kind I controlled. I gave a copy of my key to Irene, and to Ms. Diaz's office, per the protective order's suggestion. I joined a rideshare program for seniors. Mr. Patel introduced me to a nurse who could check my blood pressure twice a week for free through a community grant. I baked cinnamon rolls for the nurse and ate one myself, slowly, tasting sugar without guilt. One afternoon, the granddaughter who used to lick spoons in my kitchen knocked on the door. Ava is 12 and too old for pigtails and too young for a life like hers. She stood on my porch with a backpack and a face that didn't know which grandparent rules still applied. Mum said I could come here after school, she said. Is that okay? It's more than okay, I said, and pressed a glass of milk into her hand like a passport. She did homework at my table, while I read the instructions for my pills out loud. Not for her, but for the recorder in my own fear. 1 tablet in the morning, I said. 1 at night. Why do you talk to yourself? She asked, not unkind. so I can hear the truth in my own voice, I said. It's easy to forget the sound when other people speak for you. She considered this as only children can, deeply, silently, with a nod that is a vow. The state pressed charges against Jason: forgery, financial exploitation of an elder, attempted theft by deception. Lena testified. She did not make herself the victim or the hero. She told the middle, where she had stood smiling while he took. It wasn't clean, and it wasn't catastrophic. It was human, and it hurt. The judge sentenced him to probation, restitution, and a program he called ethics, with a lift of his eyebrow like he doubted it had ever touched Jason's skin. After, Lena asked to meet at a public park. She brought iced tea and sincerity, both sweating in the heat. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said, but I need you to know I see it now. What do you see? I asked. That I made you into a problem to solve, she said. A cost, a mess. I stopped seeing you as a person. I'm so ashamed. Shame is fine if it builds a bridge to better, I said. It's useless as a bed. She laughed once, surprised. I missed you, she said. I missed you too, I said. The you that combs knots gently. We sat until the sun made a gold stain of the pond. She told me she was looking for an apartment. She told me Jason had texted that he forgave her, which told me everything I needed to know about his version of mercy. Where will you go? I asked. Anywhere that's mine, she said. And that isn't his. Good, I said. If you need a deposit, I will lend it, with a contract and with conditions. She nodded like a student being given a chance to retake a test. What conditions? Therapy, I said. Budgeting class. And for 6 months, I control no account of yours, and you control none of mine. Boundaries are proof of love too. Deal, she said. She meant it. When I got home, I opened the windows and let the evening in. The house smelled like soup and paper, and maybe, finally, relief. I took my medicine on time. I wrote it in the ledger, even though no one was asking. The habit was comfort now, not defense. I took the recorder out of the teapot and placed it in the drawer. I didn't need it for protection anymore. I kept it for memory. There's a difference. The last time I saw Jason was at the grocery store, of course, in the aisle where they keep the coffee and the cake mixes. He looked smaller, like a suit that had lost its stiffening. How's the heart? He asked, out of habit more than care. Beating, I said. He glanced at the items in my cart, something he would always do, inventory-like affection. Looks like you can afford plenty, he said, and the old contempt tried to stand up in him. I can afford what I need, I said, which is not you. He smirked, but it didn't reach the parts of his face that mattered. You think you won. I think I am alive, I said, which is more than you ever gave me. At home, I made tea and set 2 cups on the table out of habit. One for me, one for the woman I had nearly forgotten to be. I toasted her with the steady clink of porcelain. A month later, Lena brought Ava to the house with a small suitcase and a larger hope. We're moving into an apartment near the library, she said, eyes shining with a fear that didn't drown her. Would you help us pick curtains? I would love nothing more, I said. We measured windows. We chose fabric that let the light through but gave privacy. We talked about locks that stayed changed because they were yours. In the evening, after they left, I took the binder of trust papers out of the cupboard and added one more page, a letter to Ava. It did not disinherit her mother or threaten to haunt anyone. It said, "This house is yours after I'm gone if you are kind to it." Kindness is maintenance. I've left a list. The list was practical: plumber names, roofers I trusted, the month the gutters must be cleaned, but between the lines it said something else. Do not yanking when it tangles. Work through it patiently. It applies to hair. It applies to people. It applied to us. On a bright morning not long ago, I woke before the alarm and counted the pills in my palm, not because I was worried, but because the rhythm feels like prayer. I took one with water and one with gratitude. The third I set aside for evening. The kettle sang. I turned it off. There is revenge that wrecks and revenge that rebuilds. I chose the kind that leaves me standing in my own kitchen, stirring soup I want and serving it to those who can sit at my table without stealing the spoon. If you came into my house now, you'd find nothing dramatic, just a woman with a ledger and a heartbeat and a lock that fits her own key. People will ask if I forgave my daughter. The answer is not a headline. I forgave the part of her that combs gently. I did not forgive the part that rationed me like a bill. Those parts will fight in her for a long time. They fight in most of us. My forgiveness is a room she may enter when she's ready, not a door I will carry to her. As for me, I am busy. The garden needs work. The tomatoes have ideas. Irene and I are teaching Ava how to play rummy without mercy. I see Dr. Shah every 3 months, and she says my heart sounds stubborn in the best way. Mr. Patel waves when I walk in and asks if I want the usual. Yes, I say. The usual. Some mornings, I take out the recorder and listen to a minute of my own voice reading dates, doses, decisions. Not because I need proof anymore, but because I like how certain I sound. I like the woman who learned to say no as if it were a vitamin you take daily. I like that she learned the most important thing, that practicality without care is cruelty, and that love without boundaries is a storm that never ends. If you want a different sort of revenge, the kind with shouting and spectacle, you won't find it here. What you will find is a ledger that balanced when I wrote myself back on the credit side. You will find a daughter learning the math of remorse. You will find a man who mistook control for competence, discovering that a judge cannot be sold a warranty. You will find a house that breathes easier with its own key, turning smoothly in its own lock. People say life becomes small at 73. Mine became exact. Every tablet, every appointment, every line I refused to sign or did, brought me to a kitchen where I can answer the phone without bracing, where the only knocking is from friends and granddaughters and a neighbor who returns my pie plates full of flowers, where the only thing I ration is sugar, where the ledger on the counter is closed, not because I have stopped counting, but because I finally know what counts.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.